Next, we have our first panel on the agenda of ancillary and retailing, and we are talking, broadening to technology landscape that airlines and all travel partners will need to go through that digital transformation and digital retailing. And I could not think of a better moderator for that panel than Sinead Finn. I learned how to pronounce Sinead. And Sinead is the founder of Affinity, which is a company specializing in retailing and ancillary. And she will now going to invite Sinead to the stage and introduce her panelists for the next panel. So please join me in welcoming Sinead.
Thanks, Eric. So thank you very much, Eric. It's always good. I live in London now, but it's always lovely to be back in my university town, city, Dublin. Great place. So good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here today. Thank you to FT. And yes, ancillaries is definitely my main interest. So it's fantastic to be at this conference. Thanks to Daniel and his team. So the presentations were amazing. I was fortunate enough to have worked at Ryanair for 13 years, so I did see the transition actually from the GDS into Ryanair.com. In 1998, we were through the GDS, and in 2000, we moved everything onto Ryanair.com. So I felt very fortunate, probably a lot like Georg from Play, who's going to be on the panel with us as well, where you just have a clean slate and life is very easy. So really very impressive presentations and really impressive what you are doing at Lufthansa Group and LATAM. I thought it was excellent, so thank you for those. So our first panelist today is Ursula Silling. Ursula is the CEO of Branchspace. She joined Branchspace as CEO in 2021, but her airline experience is second to none. She worked at 9 airlines, including being EVP for commercial, merging both Virgin Express and SN Brussels Airlines. Her focus is on the customer, with innovation and digital as the enabler. She's passionate about how digital has changed the quality of our lives. So please welcome Ursula to the stage. Our next panelist is Georg Haraldsson. He is Chief Information Officer at Play Airlines, where he's been for the past 2 years. Prior to that, Georg spent time at Iceland Travel, a subsidiary of Iceland Air Group, Iceland Express, and Dohop. But he's also worked outside of our industry and has a digital-first mindset. So please welcome Georg. And our next panelist is Chris Phillips. Chris is VP Global Sales at ATPCO. Prior to that, Chris spent 2 years in London consulting and 13 years at Delta. His last role there as Managing Director of Global Distribution. He has 25 years of experience in the topics which we are just about to discuss. Please welcome Chris. And of course, we're incredibly lucky because, of course, we have Jost and Ricard coming back up to join us as well. So welcome. So, hi everybody. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Good. So let's go straight into question for you, Georg, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because we've obviously heard carriers who are in a completely different situation from what you're in. So I think it would be nice. So you said to me that the customer is central to your decision making. And I was wondering if we could talk about that digital-first mindset and how you position that to the customer's advantage.
Yeah, sure. I believe in any industry that not being digital-first when thinking about the customers, that's not longer an option. It's mandatory because they are comparing yourself and how you provide your service. They are comparing it against the Ubers of the world, the Airbnbs. So if you have an app, you better have a good enough app so it compares well with Airbnb. But that's just a problem that we need to work with. But from a customer perspective, I mean, it's so important that we use the data that we have, because the data that we are sitting on is so valuable if we use it correctly towards our customers. And first of all, as Ricard was mentioning here before, having it like a seamless, have it seamlessly connect to other systems, so it in the minds of the user. So it's like a unified experience. That is extremely important as well. Of course, Play Airlines, we are very spoiled. We are not. We do not have the legacy systems hanging on our backs too much. A little bit though. But yeah. So. I don't know. I mean, and we are only 2 years in as well. Of course, we have not developed all the solutions that we have a vision to release. But yeah, we're getting there. So yeah.
Good. Yeah. Fantastic. Oh yeah. I mean, to think about the 1960s, that is quite something when you look back at, and it was innovation at its time. So, I would say definitely you are the right person for the job at Lufthansa. It's good you put up your hand, because judging by the presentation, absolutely right. But I wanted to move on to Ursula, actually, because I wanted to understand I'd like to understand what fully fledged really means. So could you define it for us?
Fully fledged dynamic retailing and data-driven, as Georg also just said. I actually like to compare it to when I would go to my favorite little store where they know me, and actually I needed to quickly do some shopping. And I also saw these sunglasses in the shopping window, which I really liked, and mine had just broken. And I enter, and the shop assistant asks, where have you been? I haven't seen you for a while. Is everything okay? And by the way, do you know, today we've got on offer this chocolate, which your husband likes so much. Maybe you want to benefit from it. And then she might offer me maybe something to try, like local cheese, which they have just discovered, which is really good. And actually, I like it so much, I buy it, even though I didn't want to. And it is just very easy. And when actually then paying contactless with my watch, the shop assistant even says, well, this is getting quite heavy. We will deliver it to you within the next 2 hours. What about this? And I think this is actually a truly dynamic retailing, when you can replicate this exactly in your digital world. And each of us here in the panel, each of us here in the room should have the offer that they are looking for. So when buying your flight, I might want just, I hate queues. I don't want any queues. I want a seamless experience. I want to have some space, ideally. I will immediately buy the middle seat free. I just want this, and this system should know it. And where I have maybe something special, I can just actually add this to my preferences on that day, or regularly. Or I fly regularly between Geneva and London. And why do I have to go through all of this process again and say, yes, I want the second piece of hand luggage, and I want this middle seat free, and I want this? Actually, it should simply be known, and I should rather have been asked before, what is your limit in the price? And as long as that limit isn't overridden, you want to use the same payment method, then I just have to give the date and maybe some time options, and the booking is done.
Sure.
And that's truly data-driven dynamic retailing.
And how are we going to get there, Ursula?
Technology is there to do it. And that's exactly what we do at Branchspace, looking at how can you do this really effortless. And I think sometimes I tend to say nowadays, and we've heard all of these presentations about where the world is moving with really latest technology stacks and replacing them completely. But a lot can actually already be done even today by overcoming those barriers, and technology, it's not the hindrance anymore. It is actually about knowing how to use it and what you want to achieve. And you might just say, okay, I'm going to start maybe slowly with this, and I'm going to first really do a review, where are my key pain points and where can I make for my customers the biggest change. Maybe you want immediately the whole fully fledged digital environment and change it completely so that you've got the same experience everywhere. Maybe you want to just start with mobile first and even ignore the web. So I think there are different ways which might be right for different people. Maybe you just say, in my environment and with my competition, for me, actually the ancillary marketplace is the perfect way to start, and later on I can see where I'm going. I will make my experiences as well. So there is not one solution for all, but there are different journeys which are possible.
Sure. Thank you, Ursula. Thank you for that. I wanted to come to you, Chris. And with all the experience that you've had to date, I wanted to really understand, how should airlines approach the journey? How should they approach the journey to becoming a fully fledged retailer?
Sure. Thankfully, at ATPCO, we're fortunate enough to work with over 425 airlines. So we have been able to observe a wide range of approaches, and a couple of patterns have emerged that kind of highlight the best practices, or what we've seen as best practices in terms of real outcomes. Jost's, well, the two pillars, first of all, are planning for the future. The second one is optimizing your current environment. And I would say Jost's presentation would be what we would highlight as a best practice for planning for the future. They've got commercial, they've got technology working hand in hand to plan ahead, and really set the stage for much of the industry and blaze a trail for much of the industry. But some lessons learned with that are, airlines who try to plan for the future but are really struggling is they take a very siloed approach. They'll have a group that takes on the offer. I want to create the perfect offer. It's the right thing to do, but they do it in a silo, and they don't work with the next piece in the travel ribbon, which is the distribution of that offer. Do you have the right commercial agreements in place? Do you have the right pipes out there to get that offer to the marketplace the way you want? The third challenge in that travel ribbon is then the display. So we have airlines who we think have created brilliant bundles. They've personalized to some level of segmentation to really offer a relevant offer to somebody. But when it gets to the distribution channels, it's commoditized. All you get is your price, your schedule, and your logo. All that work you put into your offer is lost. The customer has no idea that this is something that's special for them. And then the last one is settlement, the revenue accounting, airline settlement, the work that has to be done. If you don't solve all those together at the same time, it really draws out the number of years it's going to take. And that's an important factor. Lufthansa just put on the screen, they're going to get there by 2028. They've been at this for a long time. It's not easy. And unfortunately, at some airlines, the thought leaders leave and they start over. We see that repeatedly. So while you're working on this future vision, that second principle or second pillar that we see as a best practice, in the airlines we see actually outperforming many of their peers, is how do you optimize today? And most airlines are forgetting this. They think, whether you call it paper, whether you call it legacy, there are small investments you can make today while you're planning for the future that don't anchor you to it, but really help you generate the best revenues you can. Simple things, some things don't even cost additional investment, but branded fares. Right now, there's still over 125 airlines who don't distribute branded fares across all distribution channels. Huge missed revenue. It's a great revenue enabler for airlines. Dual RBD, this legacy constraint of 26 buckets to distribute your content, it's no longer the reality. You know, it can be exponentially enhanced, so you can do more segmentation, generate better revenue with what you're doing today without a big investment. And the biggest thing that I touched on in the planning forward phase is really focus on the display. You know, you can go out and compare your airline to airlines who are investing in modern digitized displays that helps the customer understand the exact experience they're going to have. Right now, without a huge investment, without developing a lot of new technology, there's solutions that can do that. So airlines who are focused on that, focused on both paths at the same time, future-proofing their business while optimizing today, are really generating the best results on that journey towards modern airline retailing.
Thank you for that, Chris. I just wanted to come back to the silo point, because I think it really ties in nicely with Jost's presentation. I really liked the way Lufthansa Group are being very open about partnerships and looking outward, because I think as an industry, we've always looked inward as what our own airline is doing and how we're doing it. And I wanted to understand how you've seen that, I mean, is that the mindset that's required, the Lufthansa looking outward, creating, I know you were bringing in innovation as well during COVID. I was speaking to somebody within Lufthansa. There was a whole department, actually you were doing conference call, like competing with Zoom, or, you're doing all sorts of, different, but just really going out there and really understanding, the landscape, whatever the landscape is, whether it was during COVID or, very much almost beyond recovery at this point. It's booming travel. But yeah, just interested to hear how you've seen the partnership.
Yeah.
Are partnerships necessary to get over this?
I think they're vital if the airline really wants to make the most out of the opportunities in front of them. Unfortunately, historically, airlines are just super siloed. They're very difficult to break down. It takes really strong leadership and really strong vision to just break those kind of legacy constraints. But the ones that are outperforming the market or leading the market in this transformation that we're going through in the retailing space are the ones that have been bold and brave to say, the distribution guys got to be listening to what all the departments want to do. We have brilliant airlines that have created amazing products. Their seat product, their onboard experience, top notch. Create a great offer. They can't distribute it everywhere. And then, when it's compared up against other airlines in the marketplace that they're going head to head with, they're a fare, a schedule, and a logo. The other airlines got graphics of the actual experience that the customer can see and choose how they want to experience that airline. And the performance differences are significant. And we hear that from the channels who are enabling this for the airlines. And it's, again, easy to do, but it takes a different kind of leadership and a different type of mentality to make that happen. But I do think it's vital.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. So, Ricard, thank you for an excellent presentation. It was fantastic. I was really impressed by your ancillary. Obviously, being an ancillary person myself, I was really impressed by the results. And I was wondering, can airlines sell any product they want at any stage, through any channel, at any stage of the journey?
Morally, yes, no?
Yeah, I know.
I think there are two complexities. One is whether you are tied or not for a full content agreement. Regarding that, I think this is one key element. The other is having the technology. No? I think you need these two. But I think that it's super important that you think that selling is the first part of the challenge, but then you need to deliver the product and you need to be able to collect an account for that. No? And for many airlines that are trapped in legacy tools, the second part, which is irrelevant in other industries is very complex for our industry.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. It's not. It should be easy, but it really isn't.
It is not.
Not at all. Yeah. Jost, I love the refreshing approach at Lufthansa Group. I think it's fantastic. But I'm just intrigued. You make it all sound so easy. And I'm just wondering, have you faced any obstacles to date?
I would assume that we don't have sufficient time to talk about all the obstacles that we faced to launch it and also that we are facing every day. You can imagine when we kickstarted this, we were still in COVID crisis, and there were basically two things happening at this time. So next to crisis management, there was one thing, we lifted up a completely new airline. This was set already before crisis with Eurowings Discover. And next to this, there was one additional project that was keep going, and this was indeed the planning for getting this digital transformation program established. So this was a challenge in itself to convince management why next to crisis management, next to cash management, we should look already not only a year into the future, but 10 years, 15 years into the future, develop a completely new program and being bold enough to do so. Eventually we got the management convinced, but keeping them engaged is always important. The good thing is they learn every day that we are not customer-centric. They want to be customer-centric. Whenever they go up to conferences, when they talk to their friends, getting also these pictures of reservations that are broken, they more and more realize what is the reason why it's not working. And therefore, they more and more support us in going forward. We are approaching a very tough summer when it comes to operations, at least in Europe. So we are expecting yet again a very complex summer. With all the rebookings, all the disruption that we have to take care of. And this is really at the center it's tangible to understand what is the challenges that we have. And there we have a good story. The biggest obstacles, we are beyond this point. So getting management buy-in is the most important point. So that's where it starts. If you don't have top management buy-in, you don't go nowhere, because this will take time. You will need to have money, you need to have the support, there will be downsides that you need to manage through, so you need to have top management buy-in. But other than this, we talked a lot about technology. Technology is super important, but we believe technology is there already. What is missing is the mindset, so really the culture change. And this is what we are working on heavily, ensuring that with the entire organization we can move towards this future technology stack with completely new processes. It's a classical change approach that we are following. And therefore, fun fact, the very, very first person that we hired for this program was not an IT architect, was not a programmer, was not a strategy guy, but it was a change and communication officer to really take care of what is the story that we should develop to convince our people, to get them on board to this journey, break down the silos that we have just talked about before, to ensure that we can go forward with this. So that I would say this is the key highlights when it comes to what are the challenges that everyone should take care of as well, like get your top management on board and consider that it's not only about technology, but it's really also about getting your people on board, and all the other things you can manage through.
And you're really looking at fully fledged retailing, because you even spoke about check-in in your presentation today, which I thought was, to kind of go into the operational side, I thought that was excellent, kind of ties in with what Ursula was saying when she just spoke just a few moments ago. But, you really are looking at what the customer really wants. The customer may not necessarily want to bother with check-in at all, and yeah, I think it's really good to see airlines such as Lufthansa Group looking at all those areas. So I was curious, do you have people that are looking at all the products and deciding, just changing everything? Is there a team that's that looks at change, or?
Indeed. So we have, as said, we have set up a program. We are about 30 to 40 people working on this right now in the early stage, and we're looking into the end-to-end perspective, really looking from the very first touch point, what does it mean in our app, what does it mean in our NEC pipe, for example, going through all the process steps, looking what does it mean for disruption, what does it mean to rebook passengers, what does it mean, especially when it comes to transition phase, when I have to live in old world and new world in parallel. How do I ensure that delivery, departure control is working, where we will have for quite a while still the old world running in parallel. There will be airports in the world for years where we will not touch our DCS, but what happens if the customer shows up with an order? but not a visit P&R on the ticket, how to ensure that this works. So we have indeed customer colleagues that are working all the streams, 8 of them that we have in the end-to-end perspective, looking into what we need to change, and questioning everything. And by the way, getting there to empower the people to question things, again, a change topic. So really getting our colleagues from DCS to think about what is the actual value for us, what provides value to our customer. It was hard to get there, but at some point they realized we can greenfield, we can question everything. Obviously, we need to take care of transition at some point, and we will sort this out. There's technology in place, there are some smart solutions that we can think of to ensure transition between old and new world and operation of both worlds in parallel. But first of all, start with the greenfield approach, think about what the customer wants. So question everything. So there's a whole bunch of things that we are questioning. Things like the departure control window. It's a weird thing coming from the legacy world. There's no customer willing to have a departure control window. So this is what we are doing right now, really. And you see, this is rather a mindset change thing than a technology thing.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for that, Jost. So, George, just wanted to come back to you because obviously at Play, you don't have any of these obstacles. And I was wondering if you had any advice for Jost and Ricard today.
First of all, we have our obstacles, but they might be a little bit different from what they're facing. I mean, what I'm hearing from you, both of you guys here today, I think you're on the right, absolutely on the right path. Keep the customer-centric approach to everything. Challenge the processes. Challenge your colleagues even in finding the most customer-centric way, and try to do it as digitally and automatic as possible. So there are platforms that can be used to connect data, customer data platforms, for example, like Segment or RudderStack or software like that, that can truly take the data, unify it, and so it will easily flow between systems, and you can take various data points from different systems and utilize that information to communicate correctly to the customers, or give them some extra value because what his values are, or you can bring him actual value in a conversation. So yeah. Just be on top of the technology that is going on. But well done, what you're doing today. And you have a huge task, Jost. I do not envy you at all.
So, George, Jost spoke a bit about, having that really the CEO level, and how important that was for getting things passed, getting things through. Is it the same at Play?
Absolutely. It's necessary that you have support, even above the CEO, that the board has understanding for what we want to achieve. And I feel very lucky. I'm working for a CEO that understands the need for this digital transformation and support. So I wouldn't take on a job if I wouldn't have the full support of the CEO for this kind of project. Because if in those scenarios, my job would be impossible. Yeah,
that's fair enough. Exactly. Ricard, I wanted to ask you the same question, actually. What advice would you have for George in his position from where you come from?
I think that you start from a scenario of lower complexity compared to an airline like a legacy one. I would suggest to try to protect that as much as possible. So keep complexity away. It's super easy to let complexity in because there is this opportunity to get 2% more, 3% more, 1% more. But complexity doesn't add up, ends up exponentially combining. And then it's super difficult to get rid of. No? And it creates huge costs that are hidden, are not easy to measure, but are there. And it creates slowness also. So try to protect your simplicity as much as you can.
Thank you. We will.
How about you, Jost?
I mean, this is the most important point for you. We keep complexity out of the systems because this gives you the power to drive innovation. Using this one, be bold, look into partnerships, like because you have the technology at hand where you at some point can connect to others. Like today we have the situation that as a full service carrier, we cannot easily combine the classical low-cost content because they don't have tickets. We have tickets. We even have the situation with the Lufthansa group, Eurowings, onwards, and friends calling me, hi, I want to have this onwards flight. Why is it not possible? I say, yeah, you know, they have tickets, we don't. Navitaire, Amadeus, they don't care. That's Lufthansa group, make it happen. Yeah. So you should think about how to partner up with others in the ecosystem because you have the clean technology stack already there. Soon there will be other airlines, other partners that have same technology that you can easily connect to and have end-to-end itineraries and travel experiences for our customers. So this is what you should look into based on keeping the complexity out, based on a modular architecture stack, and I think this is how we jointly can drive then the industry.
Thank you for that. So Ursula, Chris spoke about, how many airlines he's working with and the different stages that they're at. So if we, come back to airlines maybe who aren't as, far ahead as our airlines here today, how do airlines transition? I mean, where do they start?
I think it depends very much on the airline itself, so maybe the maturity which they've got, but also the market environment, the competitive environment, how big is the pressure. And there are probably different models. And I can just take some examples of what we see. It can be very simply saying, I want to do I know I've got a lot of deficiencies in digital, but where are my biggest pain points? Maybe they discover that it's all of these error messages, and I really like that example from Ricard to actually say sometimes you need to get those basics right first before you can move on. Maybe you want to fully understand it. Or you are saying, actually, I want to start with my web portal and want to really get this completely up to shape because we have maybe been a bit careless. And this is, I think, also where this whole culture comes in. What you can also easily see is that sometimes it has simply been left on its own, even with simple things like content, but the whole links don't work. The performance isn't there, search engine performance isn't there. So people actually don't even get into your shop because the shop looks like it's not really appealing. It's not where I would want to go. It doesn't reflect a brand I would want to buy from. And then there might be the other approaches simply to say, I accept a 9 months or a year's project to really, but I want that my customers will really feel they are in the super modern store, they are with the best brand, they can have an effortless experience end to end. And this is what we want to offer, so we go for this first. So I think that's where there can be difference in the environment. And I think it's very important as well, which has been mentioned several times, to think through how do I take my team with me? How do I make them understand? And my experience all the time is it takes a while, even when you suddenly take the customer seriously. And I have to quote Ricard again, because it's customer above technology in the end. If you take it seriously, my experience is it does take a while until people understand. In the beginning, they sometimes think maybe you are talking Chinese. They don't understand what it really means. And once they start to understand, they will be able to move much faster. And I think if you want to tackle the issues that are out there, you need to get that along, and you might need to support them, because there are also fears. You might need to support them in their digital upskilling, if you want them to experiment, which can give you so much additional revenue, they first need to understand what it really means. And it needs to be a culture where you can actually do this, and you suddenly get the courage and you change a color completely, and you have the possibility to do that. I remember that often it wasn't even possible to change a single word in your booking engine. You needed the supplier to intervene, pay a lot of money, and wait at least 6 months. Suddenly, you can actually change this around. You can see whether you achieve actually more customer satisfaction and whether you achieve more revenue. And I think that's important to see with your company. Where are you and how do you really make that work and get people along? And then you will have the domino effect.
Yeah. I think you've said a great word there, culture. I mean, that's what it is, culture, isn't it? That's what you're creating, the new culture, you know, at Airlines, which, you know, we're back in the 1960s, so culture is the word. It's great if you've got that culture running through the organization, and it's just getting through that, isn't it? Getting it through the organization. But once you've done that, you've made it. So yeah, it's a great word.
And I think we tend to forget that we ultimately sell experiences in aviation and travel, but it's often it's the customer who travels. But it's actually also the staff, and often the staff, their hands were bound because they had to deal with pre-internet approaches in terms of dealing with customer requests in the contact center or elsewhere. And I think we often forget this, and this needs to be fixed as well and needs to be part of it.
Super, thanks, Ursula. That leads me nicely into my next question for Chris, actually. I'm just intrigued, if you started an airline today, would you need to support any legacy process?
Ideally, I think the only answer is no, but I think that the performance of certain airlines who've taken a really hard view of we're going to be just forward-looking, you know, we're not going backwards compatible with anything, and they haven't made it, they haven't survived, would lead you to believe you need to be flexible. So take the approach, you know, that Play has, you know, go with all the new offer order management, don't rely on the legacy, but, you know, the hidden industry secret is there are dozens of airlines that are in that space today that we work with globally to figure out how do we help them work with other airlines so they can support their network. How do they get their, you know, ticketless and offer order management environment, get their fares filed through the traditional systems so they can expand their coverage and ability to sell? And there are ways to do that without destroying that vision and making you go backwards. But, you know, I would say, you know, if you're a new airline, you know, go with the best, newest technology, not tethered to the past, but make it flexible enough so you can go in and where you need to optimize your business, play where you need to play. And it's a delicate balance.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that, Chris. I was just wondering, are there any questions from the audience? No? Very quiet. Smiling up at me, all right. Hoping I won't pick on you. I won't, don't worry. Ursula, I just wanted to talk a little bit about innovation, because this has been really your sweet spot for so many years now. And just really want to understand, when we look at the subject today, how important innovation is. So, you know, Jost definitely touched on it with, you know, looking outside of even, you know, what the customer sees when you're booking online, but looking operationally as well. Just, yeah, how important is that? How important?
I think it's very important. It's not really a choice. I think innovation is absolutely crucial. It's crucial to remain relevant. We had discussions today about what do customers expect. We saw from Rohit this morning their super apps. The customer, once there is trust in the brand, ideally, and it's easy, wants to buy everything there. You've got trains which offer you the easy option, and you just start your trip, and wherever you arrive, whatever type of transport you use, you just click once you arrive, and that's what you pay, and you even get a reduction. It's cheaper than if you had bought everything on its own. There are so many examples every single day, and it's actually, I would say, today's wow, tomorrow will already be ordinary, and so this will continue. So it is important to think about this, to innovate. But innovation can also mean little things. So it can mean the experimentation, optimization I mentioned. It can mean this courage to really set up something in a completely different way than you thought before. Do tests with customers around this. Do A/B testing, which actually marketplaces typically do. And that can already mean innovation also in different contexts. And it can maybe also mean to say, okay, we've got maybe a number of problems with the customer experience. We know there might be some legacy underlying problems, but we can't wait 5 years until we will have solved them, because our customers will be gone to the one who has solved them, who offers a better proposition. So let's think a bit out of the box how these can be solved. And I think getting this spirit is actually important, because this is when suddenly you get strong, because people will start to reflect on what they do. Whilst I think this whole legacy environment created a bit this process-oriented attitude. I can't really change it anyway, so why should I even take any effort to think about it? And I think that's where this comes in. If you then use technology in a smart way, it can enable it, but it is really achieving the better customer experience, and customer also meaning the staff experiences, who need to be empowered, who need to have the tools to be able to do this, and the support. And even support also means what I've often seen, and I think that's very important when mentioning top management support. There is often a lot of pressure, a lot of ticking the boxes. We know ancillaries are important. We need to gain a lot of additional ancillary revenues because we've heard this is happening and this can help. But it's about how do you really do it. And one thing is the technology, but the other thing is your whole distribution strategy behind, for example, to do that well, to have the right propositions. You might come to the wrong conclusions just because you haven't had the right proposition, haven't listened to your customers, or you haven't used all of the input that your staff actually have and your customer-facing staff have. And mobilizing this can lead to innovation become really strong and become a lot of little as well as bigger things, and even help to solve also a lot of items, and ensure that when you do implement technology, that you actually think about the whole orchestration, you think about how do I really use it, and how do I ensure that everyone can use it, because otherwise on its own it will not work, it will not make the difference, and customers would feel like this old Grand Hotel. There used to be a good time, but there is no real care. It doesn't really come together.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much. And so we do have a question.
You have a question from the audience.
We have a mic. Thank you.
Is that on? Yeah. Hi, Seth Miller from PaxX.era. I'm curious, we've been talking about digital transformation with airlines for a long, long time. It's probably old enough to drink now, at least in Europe. And airlines have been traditionally bad at it, quite frankly. Can you compare to an Airbnb app? Some airlines maybe sort of, but for the most part, no. And so I'm curious, we keep talking about it and saying we've got to do it, but we aren't getting there as an industry. Is the answer go find partners in the industry that can do it? Is the answer make yourself part of someone else's super app instead and leverage their expertise and take your little cut of the revenue? How do we solve that problem other than just saying, we've got the data, you got your 8 terabytes of logs a day, that's great, and you're actually using them. But most airlines are collecting that data and not really using it very well. So what's the action an airline can take away from this today of how to actually take that next step?
Ricard, would you like to take that?
all of you, please.
Oh, well, we don't have enough time for everybody. I still have more questions.
I can try.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to your question because I'm in an airline and I would have done it right if I had the answer. But I can share why I think it's so difficult for us. And I think it's two things. One, there are some beliefs that are very installed in the industry and that are difficult to change, like the importance of filing first like we do because the revenue management and that's behind that, or the importance of interlining and all the things that come with that. These are very ingrained. And I think that the second thing is that we have a first mover competitive disadvantage. So the first one that gets out of legacy will be alone. And it's difficult. So we need this thing that Jost is pushing for, this critical mass of airlines working together in order to get out, to be able to remove the change of the 1960 legacy processes and be able to compete digitally with other industries.
Maybe let me add to this. Where you need to start thinking of is safety is in our DNA. You cannot compare an airline with an Uber app. If Uber is rolling out new features and trying something and it breaks, then it breaks. If we do something which is it's breaking other things. So DNA, even if we are far, far away from operation, I'm not flying an aircraft, I'm far away from operation, but still in our DNA is safety. And that's why we are doing so hard and doing innovation and think about what can we do without RBs, etc. Not because we are afraid of living without RBDs, but because safety and breaking things, this is what is in our DNA. And that's maybe one of the reasons even behind why we are doing so hard with innovation in airlines.
Good. Thank you for that. I wanted to actually finish with a question for you, Georg, actually, if that's okay, just because, you know, I think because of your tech background and because you've worked in, you know, other industries as well as, and I really think the audience would like to hear today, like, what the future of the tech stack is and what should it look like, just to finish off.
Well, it's kind of difficult to. I do not have a crystal ball, unfortunately, so I cannot tell you how it will be. But I mean, I think cloud computing will come stronger into the industry. You know, hopefully the big GDSs of the world will also transform more into that. I mean, there are obvious advantages there. It's just reliability, capability to process a lot of big data, and bandwidth. What's also going to, I mean, we will also see more AI and robotics being used. Of course, we want to have as much of automation as possible. And AI, have you tried to type into ChatGPT 4.0, for example, just writing a customer a PAX letter for this family of 4 traveling from, I don't know, Swiss to Berlin. It will give you amazing results. Just try it out. And if we just, you know, try to incorporate that kind of technology more into our industry, I think that would be both beneficial for us and also give more relevance and valuable information to the customer. We will have the IoT world, for example, that will help us with preventive maintenance. That's a huge topic we could discuss here for a full hour. Cybersecurity will be extremely important. I mean, we are seeing how the world changes, and the wars of the world are being less fought on the ground, more in the cloud. So we need to be prepared for that. And only to name a few.
Okay, thank you so much. Please could I have a round of applause for fantastic panelists today. Well done, guys.